discussions being done by the MEA. We are cutting live to it.
The Honorable Vice President of India would also be meeting with both the distinguished guests, and later today President Costa and President von der Leyen will be calling on Rashtrapati-ji, who will also host a banquet in honor of the visiting dignitaries. Let me very quickly give you a broad context and flavor of this visit and the outcomes thereof. The outcomes are deeply strategic in nature, and I would urge you to look at each of the outcomes for its specific significance in the overall scheme of things between India and the European Union. Over the last decade, relations between India and the European Union have grown steadily. They have grown not just in scale, but in significance as well, as evidenced from the level and the frequency of contacts and engagements between the two sides. In our fast-changing world, the strategic partnership between India and the EU has a value beyond the bilateral context, particularly as we witness shifts in the global economic, technological, and strategic landscape. As the world's second and fourth largest markets, India and the EU also have very high stakes on all critical global challenges of the day, including overdependence and concentration of global manufacturing and supply chains on a limited set of geographies, an ineffective multilateral system, emerging multipolarity, and growing protectionist tendencies in different parts of the world. And therefore, as two large pluralistic democracies and open market economies, our leaders have resolved to take this very strategic partnership forward for mutual benefit and for the greater good of the global population as a whole. Our relations got a very big boost last year with the historic visit of the EU College of Commissioners, which facilitated a whole-of-government approach to our most immediate priorities, which includes some of the outcomes today. And in fact, we've seen very substantial outcomes today, underlining the strategic importance that both sides attach to the bilateral relationship and to further elevating the India-EU strategic partnership. Today's summit, the 16th India-EU summit, was held after a gap of about 5.5 years, and as I said, it is a milestone not only in terms of the outcomes, but also the quality of the outcomes, but also their numbers and the potential impact that they have. The leaders announced the successful conclusion of negotiations of the India-EU FTA. Trade and economic ties are central to this strategic partnership. EU as a bloc is one of the largest bilateral trading partners of India. Bilateral trade in 24-25 was close to $136 billion, with Indian exports of $76 billion and imports of $60 billion. Services trade between the two sides is around $83 billion. The FTA that was whose negotiations were concluded and announced today will have a transformative role. Beyond boosting bilateral trade, they will boost investment, strengthening of supply chain integration, and support of sustainable growth on both sides. It is important to note that despite these obviously impressive numbers that are already there in the bilateral context, there has always been enormous room for growth in the bilateral relationship, room that was hitherto unexplored and which will now be leveraged to mutual benefit by the two sides. A second very important outcome of today's meeting, especially in the overall strategic context of the relationship, is the EU-India Security and Defense Partnership, which was signed in exchange today. While we have defense and security partnerships with several individual EU member states, this framework agreement on security and defense issues between India and the EU will be a first. It will bolster our engagements in maritime security, on defense industry, on cyberspace, and on counterterrorism. Particularly Particularly, this would allow Indian defense companies to benefit from the opportunities arising from the EU's own very significant defense initiatives that are underway. The two sides have also announced the launch of negotiations for a security of information agreement, which again demonstrates the long-term and strategic view that the two sides are taking of their relationship. A third outcome that I would want to invite your attention to is the document towards 2030, an India-EU joint comprehensive strategic agenda, which is a new roadmap to reinforce our strategic partnership and set the trajectory for advancing the relations across multiple pillars. These pillars include prosperity and stability, technology and innovation, security and defense, connectivity, and people-to-people ties for the next 5 years. I would urge you to go into the details of this particular roadmap to see the depth of intensity and the breadth of coverage that we intend to bring to this relationship. Finally, the two sides also concluded an MOU on comprehensive framework on cooperation on mobility. This is again the first such mobility-related agreement that we are concluding at the EU level with any partner. For the EU, this is a first with any partner for them. The MOU will facilitate and streamline safe, regular migration, support skill development, and ease the movement of highly skilled workers, students, researchers, and seasonal workers who happen to be in occupations in demand between the two sides. The two leaders, in fact, emphasized that some of the strongest relationships between the two sides, between India and Europe, are built by the people-to-people contacts. Today, the Indian diaspora in the EU is over 1 million people. Indian professionals in Europe are making notable contributions in several fields, including information technology, healthcare, engineering, and finance. There are more than 100,000 Indian students in Europe who continue to pursue higher education in leading universities in the EU. In addition to these agreements that I have outlined, there were a number of other important understandings that were reached. This includes the announcement of projects under the India-EU trilateral partnership, the renewal of the India-EU agreement for scientific and technological cooperation until 2030, the administrative arrangement on advanced e-signatures and seals, an MOU between the Reserve Bank of India and the European Securities and Market Authority, an administrative arrangement on cooperation in disaster risk management, and again, very, very importantly, a decision to launch exploratory talks on the association of India with Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is the world's largest public scientific research program, and India's association with this program can bring us great benefits in the future. In addition, we've constituted an India-EU task force on green hydrogen and set up a EU pilot legal gateway office in India to enhance skill mobility and launch of negotiations, as I said earlier, for an India-EU security of information agreement. So to conclude, the visit of Presidents Costa and von der Leyen to India is emblematic of our trusted and strategic partnership. We are confident that this visit will instill further momentum to deepening of India-EU ties, create more business opportunities, lead to job creation, and intensified cooperation in education and scientific research, opportunities for students, enhanced mobility for professionals and highly skilled workers, and open a new chapter in security and defense cooperation between India and the EU. I want to end by citing two quotations from the leaders at the meeting. President von der Leyen said that the world is waiting for more from EU and India. So this was really an expression of the potential that is there in this deeply, deeply strategic relationship that the two sides are now beginning to explore much more fully. And Prime Minister said during his intervention during the talks that the EU and India have put in place a blueprint for shared prosperity. I think these are the indicators of the sentiment behind the meeting today. Again, an indication of the strategic significance of this visit and of the outcomes that have marked this visit. I'll stop here. Honourable Minister would like to brief you further on the key outcome.
Thank you, Vikram. And I'd like to begin by congratulating 1.4 billion brothers and sisters in India. 140 crore देशवासियों को बधाई देना चाहूँगा. Just like Foreign Secretary just articulated in great detail, this visit is extraordinary. It goes far beyond a free trade agreement. It goes far beyond the humongous potential that is being unlocked with the free trade agreement. It is truly a statement of deep partnership and the strategic intent of the European Union and India coming together in a multitude of areas to strengthen our partnership, to work together for the shared prosperity and a better future for 1/3 of humanity. It is a reflection that when 25% of global trade decides to strengthen the strategic partnership, including with the free trade agreement, it unlocks the doors to defense cooperation, greater investments, to cooperation in the field of innovation and science, to further integration of financial markets. And therefore, I would term this visit, as very rightly pointed out by the Honorable Foreign Secretary, as a game-changing and transformational visit in terms of the strategic partnership between European Union and India. And therefore, I think congratulations are in order to Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, to Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, and His Excellency Mr. Antonio da Costa, the President of the European Council. They have provided visionary leadership, which has further been strengthened with colleagues from almost all parts of government in both the European Union and India. Everybody playing their role to prepare the roadmap and lay the foundation for a very powerful economic, geopolitical, and strategic partnership of the 21st century. We are also very pleased to have concluded negotiations on, as Ms. von der Leyen herself has articulated, the mother of all deals, a free trade agreement which covers 25% of global trade. It is our 8th free trade agreement under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, each and every one of them with developed nations and collectively reflecting an agreement between India and 36 developed nations. With these 27 of the European Union, 4 from the FTA, 31 and 6 more, 37 developed nations and India have entered into free trade agreements in a short span of 4 years. under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Friends, this breakthrough in the EU-India trade relations comes after 20 years. You're all aware the discussions were launched in 2006. 16 rounds of negotiations were held. Sadly, in 2013, efforts were aborted, and almost nobody ever imagined the European Union and India being able to come up with such a robust partnership framework as has been finalized by our leaders today. In fact, when we relaunched negotiations in mid-2022 and laid the initial foundational work, prepared our game plan and way forward, we had elections in India and then in the European Union through 2024. So the heavy lifting for this FTA really started after the historic visit of the European Union Trade Commissioners led by Ms. von der Leyen in February 2025. And I think it's been the labor of love of the entire government in European Union and India, burning the midnight oil, persevering, working in a spirit of cooperation, India negotiating with self-confidence, both sides agreeing to focus on what is good for both set of countries, the European Union and India, leaving the sensitive issues aside, and therefore coming up with a very balanced, equitable and fair free trade agreement, which is a win-win for all sections of industry, both in India and European Union, opening up plethora of opportunities for investment, opening up markets which are complementary, with India gaining access significantly in labor-intensive industries like marine products, chemicals, footwear and leather, plastic rubber goods, textiles, apparel and clothing, gems and jewelry, furniture, sports goods, toys, and the European Union industries gaining access to the large and fastest growing economy of India in innovation, technology, sectors of precision engineering, and areas where India continues to look for partnerships and technologies from across the world. Friends, this agreement covers almost 99% of the total exports that are sent from India to the European Union, and about 97% plus of the total exports from European Union to India, something which is unprecedented and reflects the strength and the depth of this agreement. We have tried to address the asymmetry in economic development between the two nations, with different per capita incomes, with transitional periods, but ultimately focusing on the complementary strengths of both economies, such that all 28 countries will stand to benefit. Collectively, the European Union today imports nearly $6.5 trillion worth of goods and nearly $3 trillion worth of services. India plays very small role in that. Our total exports are currently just about 1.5% of the goods import into Europe and barely 2.5% of the services import into Europe. With this massive opening up of opportunities, the European Union has also opened up many new sectors. India has opened up many new sectors in the services space. We can see a big thrust to the services sector. As I said, on marine products, almost 94% of the tariff lines and almost the entire value of goods that are exported are going to get duty-free access. As I said before, areas like textiles, apparel, home decor, furnishing, where India has very serious labor-intensive interests, 100% of the European market will be open for business from day one. And I can give you more details, but we have furnished those details to all the members of the press, whether it's furniture and lighting or other consumable goods. Almost all of our exports are going to get duty-free access from day one. Likewise, for toys, for sports goods, for railway components, aircraft parts, also in leather and footwear. These are areas which are of significant interest to India. Similarly, India will open its doors for greater import of auto components, automobiles, wines, spirits, and other areas of interest to the European Union, with both sides having ensured that sensitive items are kept out of the ambit or given sufficient transition period for adjustment of the industry and economic cycles. For example, from the context of the European Union, their interest was more in larger automobiles, since they do not make automobiles which are under 15 or 20,000 euros in big measure. We in India produce largely automobiles which are smaller in size and lower in cost. So we've been able to come to a very amicable understanding where the auto industry in Germany is very happy, getting greater access in a phased manner in areas of their interest, while Indian industry is very happy that we've been able to protect their areas of interest in the smaller and low-cost automobile sector. And this is the story that's been repeated in sector after sector. So I believe we are offering today to the world an agreement which is unprecedented in scale, in terms of market access. It will support Make in India and support industry in the European Union. It opens up plethora of opportunities for investments on both sides. We have seen large investments flow from Europe to India, which can now grow manifold. At the CEO Business Forum, one of our industry conglomerates was mentioning that they have already invested $70 billion in Europe. And therefore, I see this as a partnership where both sides will get a lot of opportunities in trade, in investment. It provides stability of policy, predictability of tariffs and rates, and it provides certainty to business, which is the sine qua non to successful trade and engagement between two large economies. Europe is, of course, a $20 trillion plus economy. India, being the fastest growing large economy, will become a $30 trillion plus economy by 2047 and catch up very rapidly with the developed world. And together, we will work for the shared prosperity and better future for 2 billion people in Europe and India. Thank you very much, friends, and I look forward to a very successful journey through trade, through investments, through all the various areas articulated by Foreign Secretary, be it mobility, be it our strategic and defense partnership, be it our innovation partnership, be it our partnership on scientific discovery, research and development, being our partnership to further our interests in multilateral organizations where we work together for the good of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We now open the floor for some questions. Please raise your number, your hand, and then I'll identify you. Can we go there? 183.
Hi, sir. My name is Siddhant Sibal from Beyond. To the Minister, sir, how do you see this FTA being implemented? Any timeline, because it has to go through a legal scrubbing through the Parliament as well? And do you think that the signing of the FTA, whenever it happens, will give impetus to other FTAs, including the US FTA? To the Foreign Secretary, sir, it is on the IMEC, how much the conversation was? And to the Commerce Secretary, sir, my question is, was CBAM part of it, or is it excluded?
Well, I think every agreement stands on its own legs, and this is a wonderful agreement. It will be taken up for legal scrubbing on a fast-track basis, as we discussed today, and translated into 24 languages simultaneously. We do hope that we should be able to celebrate the entry into force of this agreement within calendar 2026 itself.
I think on connectivity, on IMEC you mentioned, as you know, connectivity is a very important thread in the agenda between India and the EU. And indeed, it was on the agenda today. There was a discussion about it. And there was consensus on the fact that the IMEC initiative is one that should be taken forward. And we should now graduate from the working level meetings that have taken place.
That press conference there being addressed by both Vikram Misri and Piyush Goyal on the mother of all deals. Let's also listen into what the Prime Minister